The lifeless body of a humble contractor is left for dead at a local fire station.
There's stab wounds on both his chest and in his back.
This truck is covered in blood.
To solve the case, investigators must trace the crime back to its point of origin.
What's that look like to you?
But first, a code of silence needs to be broken.
You're lying through your teeth.
Get the hell out of my house!
The situation did get rather crazy very quick.
Just the smallest little thing can set people off into a horrible rage.
The first thing you learn as a police detective is people do not respond out of a sense of duty. They don't respond to doing the right thing. They don't respond out of a sense of loyalty. They respond to pressure. Self-preservation is what works.
After a shift change at Fire Station 6, Captain Jerry Binder is making sure his crew is ready for action.
Listen, Chapman, you can't go out there without your gear. I don't want to see that happening again. You got me?
Got you, Captain.
Okay, good.
Captain Binder was the captain of this station, and he was a strong leader, had high expectations for his crew members.
Keep that helmet strapped.
Somebody help! Help,
What's wrong,
please? There's a man. He's hurt real bad.
Where?
He's outside in the truck.
Ricky, get trauma kit. Meet me outside.
When an emergency responds to the front door of your station, it's an instant go-to-work mode.
So he goes running outside and he finds a shirtless man in the front seat covered in blood.
Hang in there, buddy. We got you.
Come on now. Come on.
Give him a cap. There you go. There you go.
Oh, damn it. Let's put pressure on that.
As they lay him down, we see there's stab wounds on both his chest and in his back. We begin direct pressure on those injuries, make sure his airway is clear, stop the bleeding.
Jackie, come here and take over from her, will you?
Code 3, we need help down at Station 6 right away.
As Binder completes the transmission,
What the hell? Hey, lady!
he looks up and sees that the woman is now walking south, away from the scene.
Where you going?
She's walking away very quickly, like she doesn't want to have anything to do with what's going on.
On this particular evening, May 29th of 1984, I was still a patrol sergeant working the evening shift.
Did you help her figure it out?
Yeah, come to find out she's at the wrong house.
Dispatch to 4 Paul 1.
Go for 4 Paul 1.
Code 3 in progress at Fire Station 6. All units requested.
10-4, 4 Paul 1 en route. Let's move.
Generally, a patrol sergeant's job is to supervise officers on the street. You are a general practitioner. You respond to any call for service from the police department, from a taxpayer who wants to talk about his pilot light going out in his hot water furnace, or he wants to shoot his neighbor. The spectrum is very broad. I would occasionally respond to calls of a non-serious nature to see how my officers were interacting with members of the public. But if a call of a serious nature came in, I would always respond.
So any idea what happened here?
I have no clue. Victim was dropped off in this truck out back, covered in stab wounds. Doesn't look good.
You know we're gonna have to cordon off the area.
Hey, do what you gotta do.
If you are responding to a violent crime scene, your first determination is to determine the basic facts.
Want to set up a perimeter?
Yes, sir.
Once those facts are known, I was the deciding factor as to what specialists were required.
4 Paul 1 to dispatch.
There's not much the patrol can do with this, so he called for detectives from the homicide unit to respond.
Not 30 minutes later, Detective John Anderson arrives on scene.
John, Gary.
Evening, Joe. When this first happened, I was the lead detective on this case.
Anderson, a very good detective, well-trained, well-experienced.
So what are we looking at?
Well, the victim showed up in the truck out back. Severe stab wounds to both his back and his chest. We just got notification he was DOA at the hospital.
We got an ID?
He had a wallet on him.
He is, according to the license, James Seaman, 42 years of age. They take that name and they check the registration on the license plate on this truck, and it's his truck.
So he drove himself here? We're not so sure about that. The firefighter said a woman told him about the victim. but she disappeared while they were giving life support.
Did she give a name?
No, but they described her as being Hispanic, dark hair, wearing a red jacket.
Can we get a canvass of the area started?
And my guys are already on it.
What's important now is to find this woman. Is she responsible for this attack? Or is she a good Samaritan?
Let's take a look inside the truck yet.
Not yet.
All right, let's do it.
To our knowledge at this juncture, the only crime scene we have as a possibility is the truck in which he arrived in this fire station.
Guy must have been losing blood pretty fast.
There is a lot of blood in this truck.
There was blood caked on the front seat. There was blood on the steering wheel.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot. Looks like transfer blood to me.
Yeah, there's no cast off on the dash or anything either.
It probably wasn't stabbed with the truck now.
Oh, you're probably right.
So now we don't believe the crime scene is in the vehicle. We have to look elsewhere. One of the things that we utilize in investigations is a trilogy, a connection between the victim, the suspect, and the crime scene. When we're missing the suspect and the crime scene, all we have left is the victim. So it complicates things.
Finding the crime scene is paramount. Unless we find that, we're going to have a very difficult time trying to determine what happened.
So what do you got there? Drywall.
Business cards bearing his name are found in the cab of the vehicle, and the business card says that he is a drywall subcontractor. Generally, drywall work is subcontracted. Most construction companies and builders do not have a drywall crew. They hire someone who has his own crew for a fee to drywall the premise. So Mr. Seaman is in the business of contacting builders, getting contracts to do drywall work, and he then responds with his own crew to do the work.
Hey, sir.
Any luck with the canvas?
Nothing, unfortunately. Dispatch checked with records. Victim's got a wife.
Mary Seaman.
The question becomes obvious, is Mary Seaman the woman in red? We don't know, but we're going to have to find Mary Seaman to find out what she can tell us about her husband, James.
Hey, Joe, you and you guys hold down the fort. We're gonna go look into this.
Can I help you?
Ma'am, we're with CSPD. We're looking for Mary Seaman.
I'm Mary.
The investigators take one look at her and realize she cannot be the woman in red. Mrs. Seaman is not Hispanic, so now those investigators have to give her some very awful news.
Mary, I'm sorry to tell you this, but your husband is dead.
Wait, what? Oh my God, what happened?
He was murdered.
Of course, when Mary Seaman finds out that her husband has been killed, she is stunned and she is just inconsolable, really. I mean, she just breaks down.
There's a period of time required for someone to pass through that information and be able to still have a conversation. It takes some time.
Mary, I know this is hard. Do you know what your husband was doing earlier today?
No, I don't know. He hasn't actually been living here.
Mary tells police that she and James have been married for 5 years, but things have started to get a little bit rocky. And as a matter of fact, he moved out about a week ago.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And we had issues in our marriage, but deep down, Jim's got a good heart. He works hard, and he gets along with most everybody.
She says that everybody knows him as Jim. He's a kind of a tough, blue-collar kind of guy, but generally he's got a sensitive side to him.
Do you know if he was having any problems with anyone recently?
I do remember him saying something about there being an issue with some guy who was working for him, but it didn't seem that serious.
Remember the guy's name?
He didn't say.
That, of course, is interesting, but there's really very little information there that's pursuable. So they ask her if Jim has any friends or associates who are Hispanic women.
I can't think of anybody like that. But I don't know who he's been hanging around lately. You'd be better off talking to his friend, John Gibson. That's who he's been staying with.
Thank you, Mary.
We'll see ourselves out.
Detectives head to the home of Jim Seaman's new roommate.
We knew that was maybe a possible crime scene, so we needed to talk to Mr. Gibson.
Yeah. Mr. Gibson? Detective Anderson with CSPD. Why don't we take a look around your house?
My house? For what?
Your friend Jim was found murdered.
Jim, what the hell are you talking about?
Mr. Gibson is totally shocked at this news.
Mind if we take a look around?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Gibson, when was the last time you saw Jim?
After he got home from work. I want to say maybe around 5 o'clock. All he did was shower and head right back out.
Gibson reports he was going to go to a graduation party at a house in the area that belonged to a friend of his named Rose.
You know who this Rose person is?
Yeah, I met her before, but I don't really know her.
You know what she looks like?
Oh, she's short, got long black hair.
Is she white?
Nah, she's Latina.
So Rose is a Hispanic female. Could she own a red jacket by any chance?
Do you know where Rose lives?
Yeah, over on Chartwood.
Excuse me. Place is clear?
We could find no evidence of blood or any indication that there'd been a struggle, but it was obvious that this was not our crime scene.
Appreciate your cooperation.
Yeah.
Let's get a cruiser over there on Charwood.
Yes, sir.
At that point, we wanted to find Rose to see if she was the woman in the red jacket. But we also wanted to see if where she lived was possibly our crime scene.
When they pull up in front of that house, even though it's late at night, there's no car in the driveway, there's no apparent lights, there's no anything. It looks like nobody even lives there. And these detectives are looking at each other like, is this another dead end? Hey, this doesn't look like a place where a party was.
Can I help you?
A woman answered the door. She matched the description of the woman at the fire station.
We're homicide detectives with the Colorado Springs Police Department. Are you Rose?
Yes.
Rose what?
Trejo?
Is that your jacket?
We're standing talking to a Hispanic female, and over her shoulder, we see a red jacket. Well, no. 2 and 2 often equals 4. We're standing on the right porch. The investigation begins with the discovery of 42-year-old Jim Seaman dying inside his own truck. A woman drove that truck to that fire station wearing a red jacket. The officers have found the Hispanic female, and they see a red jacket.
Rose, did you drive Jim Seaman to the fire station in his truck this morning?
Yes.
So now they know. They've hit the jackpot.
Is Jim okay?
I'm afraid not. He's dead.
Oh, God. I swear, I don't know what happened.
So you won't mind if we take a look around?
Okay.
Keep an eye on her.
Yes, sir. Ma'am, not here for me.
We knew this was a brutal stabbing, so we're suspecting there will be blood evidence at the scene.
They walk in this house, and it's fairly obvious that a major party had taken place. Empty red cups, beer cans, liquor bottles.
And looking at Rose's kitchen, there were dirty dishes everywhere, but there was one thing that really stood out.
Does that look weird to you?
Yeah, a little bit.
As soon as we saw the knife, which really appeared out of place,
Let's get that thing bagged.
You got it.
we immediately thought this could be our murder weapon.
As they continue to search the house,
Check this out.
Anderson notices something alarming at the top of the basement staircase.
What's that look like to you?
That's blood.
Got that right.
We are on third base at this moment.
As we follow the blood evidence downstairs, we find a bloodied shirt. We also saw a mop that appeared to be blood-stained.
There is smeared blood on the floor, as if the most incompetent user of a mop in the history of the world tried to clean up the floor for a few minutes.
Looks like we found our crime scene.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So Rose has a little more explaining to do about the source of all of this blood.
John, call dispatch. Let them know we got to get this crime scene processed.
Yes, sir.
As for you, we need you to tell us exactly what happened here today.
Okay.
Rose isn't stupid. She knows why they're asking her.
We were throwing a graduation party for a family friend, and things just got crazy. I was out front. And next thing I know, Jim stumbled out of the house. Oh my God. Oh! Jim! Jim, what the hell happened?
Rose said she saw that Jim was hurt. He was struggling to get into his pickup truck.
Move. Okay, I'll drive. Go. Scoot. Move.
She knew he needed help immediately.
We got in the truck, and I was going to take him to the hospital. But when I saw the fire station, I just figured that they'd help him faster.
It is not unique for people to stop at a fire station with someone who's had a heart attack or a traumatic injury. That is not unusual. It happens. People shouldn't do that. If you try to go to a station thinking there are people there, they could be out on alarm. They could be training. They could have already transported someone to a hospital, and now you've delayed vital medical assistance for your loved one.
Why don't you stay with him at the fire station?
I don't want to be involved.
Rose, you are involved in this, so your plan failed.
So how do you know Jim?
We haven't known each other long. I'm a painter, and we just met on a construction job a few months ago.
Were the two of you romantically involved?
No, nothing like that. Just friends.
As a matter of fact, Jim had confided in her that he still loved his wife and hoped they could work things out.
So you had nothing to do with Jim's death?
No, I swear to God, I wasn't involved.
At this point, we're thinking Rose probably is genuine.
They believe she's a witness and maybe isn't completely honest with them about what she knows about this, but they don't believe she's responsible.
So then who did kill Jim?
I don't know. Everybody loves him. Some of the people at the party, they've even done drywall for him before.
So you didn't see him at all?
I only remember seeing him in the kitchen. He was playing dominoes.
By himself?
No, he was playing with Armando.
Armando who?
Alvarez.
Mondo?
You know him?
Yeah, I know him. I've arrested him several times. Guy's in and out of prison. Real piece of work.
Detectives wonder if a drunken game of dominoes might have spurred a sudden explosion of violence.
What's she gonna do, Mondo?
Shut up, Jim.
Ooh. Wrong move.
Damn it, Jim.
It's too easy.
You cheated.
I didn't do Mondo. Just relax.
Did the prison personality take over, and Armando decides that Mr. Seaman needs to meet his maker? Could that be possible? Oh, yes, it could. Violence in prison is instantaneous. It's flashpoint violence. There's an issue, you respond by attacking the other person. There's no discussion. It's immediate attack. It's the way things are done in a penitentiary. Mr. Alvarez has experience in these matters.
Gentlemen?
Hey, Joe. Long time no see.
So what do you guys got?
So we got a crime scene in the basement. Possible murder weapon is in the kitchen. We're gonna need this entire house processed.
Okay, what about her?
She's good.
As the sun begins to rise, Anderson is ready to give his new suspect, Armando Alvarez, a wake-up call.
What do you want?
When police get to Armando Alvarez's house, they're greeted by this short little angry woman who is not in any mood to have police at her house.
We're looking for Armando Alvarez.
My husband ain't here.
No? And where is he?
Not here. Why you want to talk to him?
That's Mondo.
Armando, freeze!
They see a shadow darting across the hallway, and they push past her to go get Armando, and she goes off.
So the situation did get rather crazy very quick.
She's absolutely out of control. These are the right kind of folks that we want to talk to about somebody being stabbed to death. Investigators are trying to determine who stabbed Jim Seaman to death at a graduation party. They're focused on an ex-convict, Armando Alvarez. When they approach him at his home, his wife immediately attacks an officer unprovoked.
Oh. Damn it!
I'll kill you!
Drop the shoe! Drop the shoe! Drop it! Get on the ground!
So now we're trying to control him. At the same time, we're arresting his wife.
She assaulted a police officer! Send her to central booking!
Stand right.
Listen, if you want to help her, you need to help us.
Armando is not happy about all of this. His wife has been removed, and she's going to jail for second-degree assault in a police house.
What happened yesterday?
I went to a graduation party for my nephew.
You were there with Jim Seaman?
Jim? No, I worked drywall with Kenda. I didn't see him at the party.
Oh, that's interesting. Because we were told that you were there playing dominoes together.
So unless you play dominoes wearing a blindfold, Armando, we're going to assume that you're lying through your teeth.
Look, there were a lot of people at the party, okay? Only whoever said that, only got me confused with somebody else.
You're saying you have no idea who stabbed Jim?
I didn't even know if Jim got stabbed. Probably I left before that even happened.
This is the typical response you get from people with a criminal past. Nobody ever knows anything.
Well, since you probably have nothing to hide, you don't mind if we take a look around, do you?
I guess. Take a look.
We're searching this house looking for bloody clothing, a knife, any other similar item that may connect him directly to this offense.
Got nothing.
We don't find anything of any evidentiary value. We know he's not telling the truth, but we don't have enough to arrest him.
So we good?
No, not really. You might hear from us soon.
What about my wife?
Feel free to post a bell whenever you want.
After striking out with Armando, detectives rethink their approach.
Jim's wife, Mary, had told us that she knew of a minor altercation at work with a coworker. We know Armando did work for Jim, so it becomes important for us to get more information from the construction site.
Jim? He's a top-notch guy. He's been doing drywall on my sites for a few years now. He and his crew always do good work.
At the construction site, we do talk to Ron Hopper, and he tells us that he hired Jim to be the foreman of the drywall crew.
How many guys were working for him on his most recent job?
There were 3 of them. Keno, Rufus, and Armando.
Know of any recent problems between Armando and Jim?
Between Jim and Armando? No, not that I can recall. But you know, there was a minor issue between Jim and Keno the other day.
Ron says the source of conflict between Keno and Jim was a paycheck.
Ron did remember an issue between Keno and Jim, where Jim had stopped by the construction site and picked up the paycheck for Keno, intending to deliver it to him. But when Keno arrived at the construction site and found out his paycheck wasn't there, he became upset.
Hey, Ron.
Hey, what's up, Keno?
Just about to grab my check.
Your check? Jim already grabbed it for you.
Wait, what? When?
Early this morning.
And you gave it to him?
Well, yeah. I mean, I figured you told him to swing by and grab it or something. And...
No way. I need that money now. I got people I gotta pay.
Well, I mean, Jim said he's going to another work site this afternoon. I'm sure you can find him there. And...
I don't have time for this shit. Who the hell does Jim think he is?
Relax, Keno.
Dang.
Ran out of here all pissed off. And trust me, you don't want to be on Keno's bad side.
Why is that?
Guy can fly off the handle pretty easy.
Ron tells police that Keno has a very bad temper, especially when he's been drinking, and it can turn violent.
Wouldn't be surprised if he had words about it with Jim off-site.
What's Keno's last name?
Garcia.
Garcia. All right, we appreciate your time. Thank you.
So at this point, Keno emerges as a stronger suspect than Armando because Keno has a motive. So now the question is, was Keno Garcia at that party?
In search of some answers, Detective Anderson circles back to Rose Trejo.
Excuse me.
Can I help you?
Hi. Detective Anderson with CSPD. I'm looking for Rose Trejo. She said she was staying here.
My aunt, she left already.
Do you know when she'll be back?
She didn't say.
Well, maybe you can help me then. Were you at your aunt's party yesterday?
Yeah, it was terrible.
She reports, "Oh, I was there, and I remember Jim Seaman covered in blood."
Did you see what happened?
No, I just saw him stumbling around. I freaked out. I just ran out there as quickly as I could.
Let me ask you something. Do you know who Keno Garcia is?
Keno, yeah, why?
Did you happen to see him at the party?
Yeah, I saw Keno right before that whole incident with Jim happened. I saw him go into the basement.
Really?
Wow. Not only does she put the man with a motive at the party, she puts him in close contact to the victim shortly before his injuries took place. That is important.
After Rose's niece drops this bombshell, Anderson sets out to learn more about their new prime suspect.
Hey, Anderson. I was over at Records, and Duffy asked if I could drop this off to you.
Is that the Garcia file?
Sure is.
Man, look at his record.
We do a background check, and we find that he is a convicted felon. He's been on parole, and he was last arrested for robbery and aggravated assault.
You think that might be your guy?
Very well might be.
So Keno, who is a convicted felon, who had a beef with our victim, who has a temper and drinks, is really adding up to be our #1 suspect.
This has all come together rather nicely, and Mr. Garcia has some explaining to do. So we've learned that Jim Seaman had a recent confrontation with one of his drywall workers, and this drywall worker is currently on parole from the state penitentiary. It's time to go speak to him and find out what he has to say about this.
Mr. Garcia, thank you for meeting with us.
Yeah, I'm used to it.
So tell us about your relationship with your colleague, Jim Seaman.
Jim was my homie. I can't believe what happened to him. It's terrible.
Keno tells police that Jim's a great guy to work with, and he doesn't really have any problems with him.
Well, if that's the case, then tell us what happened between you and him regarding your paycheck.
At the work site? No, man. That was nothing. Not a problem.
He explains that he blew that completely out of proportion. He said it was no big deal, that they've talked about it, it's behind them.
So you didn't have any words with Jim in the basement at Rose's party the other day?
No, man. We were good. And besides, I never even went in the basement.
Any ideas how Jim got stabbed?
I went outside before that even happened. When I came back, everyone was going nuts.
Right.
So he falls right in line with everybody else who had just left, just got there, or were in the bathroom when somebody was killing Jim Seaman.
Just got a small problem with that. Because someone told us that they saw you go downstairs just moments before Jim was stabbed.
What? Who told you that?
Well, someone we've been talking to. Someone who saw you.
I don't know. I had a lot to drink, you know?
We confront him that we do have an eyewitness that puts him downstairs, and he begins to backtrack.
So now you could have been in the basement.
I don't know. But if I was down there, I definitely didn't see what happened.
Well, if you're in the basement, then surely you saw something.
Garcia's face collapses, and he realizes his story is crumbling before his eyes. And then all of a sudden, he just drops his head and says,
"Look, I swear I didn't kill Jim, but I can't be no snitch, man."
A snitch is a person who speaks to authorities and tells the truth about their knowledge about someone else's criminal activity. In a penitentiary, they put a snitch jacket on you, is the expression, so that everybody knows that you are a person who will speak the truth to the authorities, that you disavow the code of silence, and you will come forward, and you will get murdered for that in a heartbeat in a jail.
So you're telling us that you know who killed Jim?
I'm saying I'm done talking.
Is he trying to protect someone who did this, or is he only trying to protect himself? Could be either one.
This is how it's going to be, Keno? Fine. Come on. You're free to go.
I am?
Yeah.
At this point, we decide to let Keno go. We don't think we have enough to hold him, and we certainly don't have enough to convict him.
I want to pair eyes on him. I want to track his every move.
Good thinking. You got it.
Anderson wants to be in a better position with Keno Garcia and return to him when he has more leverage against him, either through other witnesses or other information he may be able to develop.
In the meantime, detectives continue to search for new information from Seaman's colleagues at work.
If they can find that person who has more loyalty to Mr. Seaman than they have to their associates, they may loosen this.
When we arrive, he's playing with his wife and kids in the front yard. He seems more stable than the other two.
So they go find the third member they haven't talked to in this drywall crew, and that's Rufus Medina.
Mr. Medina.
Yes?
I'm Detective Anderson with the Colorado Springs Police Department. I'd like to talk to you for a minute about Jim Seaman.
Jim? Yeah, of course. Hey, go play mom for a little bit, okay?
Detective Anderson is thinking perhaps we've met someone who's loyal to Mr. Seaman. This guy looks like a genuine family man.
You know, it's just real awful what happened to Jim. Someone like him didn't deserve to die that way.
Well, that's why we're doing everything we can to figure out what happened to him. Were you at the party the other day?
I was, and to be honest, I had a few myself. I remember hearing some screaming, but that's about it.
So Rufus Medina all of a sudden becomes the same sort of I was there, but I didn't see anything guy that everybody else has been.
So what do you know about the issue with the paycheck between Jim and your coworker, Keno?
It's water under the bridge as far as I know.
You don't think Keno had it out for him?
Keno? No way. Keno would never do something like that.
He then says, if I knew who hurt him, I would tell you. And I have no idea who hurt Jim Seaman.
But you know what? If I hear anything, you'll be the first person to know, okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Rufus does come off somewhat credible. The problem is that everybody we've talked to deny knowing anything. This is one of those situations where everybody is lying.
The first thing you learn as a police detective is people do not respond out of a sense of duty. They don't respond to doing the right thing. They respond to pressure.
But where will that pressure come from? A few days later, Anderson finds his answer.
Anderson. Yeah, put her through. We got somebody on the line that's saying they know something about the Jim Seaman case.
Hello?
At this point in the investigation, we got an anonymous phone call from a woman who claimed to be at the party.
Did you see what happened to Jim Seaman?
No, but I saw him when he came up from the basement.
She saw Jim Seaman come up out of the basement, covered in blood, and he shouted, Rufus, you...
You heard Jim say that?
Yeah, he was shouting it. Then I looked down the basement steps, and that's when I saw him.
The anonymous caller said that she looked past Jim down the bottom of the stairs and saw Rufus. He was covered with blood, raging with anger.
Rufus Medina?
Yeah.
Rufus was really the last name that police thought they would hear.
We've finally stirred this nest enough to where there are enough hornets now that are buzzing. We're getting very close to who's responsible for this crime. All this time, we've been focusing on a couple of different people, and an anonymous phone tip has provided a new suspect, that Rufus Medina, Mr. I don't know who hurt Jim Seaman, is the guy who killed him.
But before zeroing in on Rufus, detectives hope to reap the rewards of an earlier strategy.
We decide we want to go back to Keno. It appears that he's violated his parole, so we think this pressure may bring him to tell us the truth.
Do you know why you're back here, Mr. Garcia?
No idea.
Keno, we understand you're in violation of your parole.
We've got you drinking and hanging around convicted felons.
Listen, Keno, you've got two options. I can either call your parole officer and have you sent back to the state pen in a heartbeat, or you can help us understand who killed Jim Seaman.
There's always a limit to your loyalty and always a limit to your willingness to continue with the code of silence. Parole violation is a serious limit.
Okay. All right. I was in the basement when Jim got stabbed. But I swear to God, it wasn't me.
Okay, tell us what happened.
We were all in the basement.
Who was?
Me, Rufus, Armando, and Jim.
Keno says they're talking to Seaman about work, and everybody's really drunk, and everybody's kind of a little angry.
We're all yelling back and forth. That's when I saw Rufus pull the knife.
He said all of a sudden, Rufus Medina attacks Seaman like a wild animal.
Keno says he tried to get the knife away, but it was too late. Jim had already been stabbed several times.
Then Jim took his shirt off and staggered up the steps. I couldn't believe it.
So you're telling us that Rufus stabbed him?
Mm-hmm.
How would Rufus do that?
I don't know, man.
He said, well, I was pretty drunk. I don't remember what was said just before Rufus went off, but Rufus went off.
Are we good now?
Not exactly. I have to hold you for the time being.
Officer?
What Keno Garcia is saying certainly matches well with the anonymous phone call, but they're going to need more than the accusation of a known criminal to get a conviction on Rufus Medina. They want a statement from Rufus. They want him to say what he did.
Before sitting down with Rufus Medina, detectives dig into his background and make some interesting discoveries.
We do find out that he, like his two buddies, is also on parole.
He's not the saint that they thought he might be. He has a violent background, and he's somebody that obviously could have done this.
Our society punishes people for committing criminal offenses by putting them in a penitentiary. Penitentiary is gladiator school. You learn how to behave even more violently and more badly than you did before you went in. The system, as it's designed, produces people who are not rehabilitated. They are often worsened by their experience. And Rufus Medina is a good example of that. So we bring in Rufus Medina. He remains very calm. He's an experienced criminal.
Guys, look, I'd love to help you, but I promise I was never down in that basement.
That's not what we were told.
I don't know where you guys are getting this stuff. Jim was my friend, and I would never hurt him.
He didn't know nothing about nothing. He didn't stab Jim Seaman. He doesn't know who did.
So is this how you want to play it? Fine. But mark my words. If I find out that you killed Jim Seaman, I'm going to put you away for it.
Although we probably had enough to arrest Rufus, we know our witnesses are not credible, and we do have a problem with some of the evidence. So we decide to not arrest him at that point.
Rufus, we don't forgive, and we don't forget. You should keep that in mind.
As the investigation continues into the summer, a familiar face is transferred back to Homicide.
Hey, sir.
I had returned to Homicide, and as a supervisor, I'm responsible for the actual closure of the case.
So where are we at with the Seaman case?
Nobody's story stays consistent. Everyone's telling something different. You know how it goes.
Okay. Right. You think it's time we start subpoenaing some of these people?
No point in wasting any more time.
All right.
We decided to impanel a grand jury. So we began serving subpoenas to the people at the party to induce them to come in and cooperate on the record with the risk of them being charged with a felony for perjury.
Every person who says they don't know anything, they better start remembering something. And if they don't remember the truth, they're going to suffer the consequence.
So over the next several days, several people are subpoenaed that were at the party. When they convene at the grand jury, all of them point to one person as being the suspect.
As a result of that pressure, they all testify, and one by one, they all name Rufus Medina as the person who killed Jim Seaman.
After that grand jury, we got a much better picture now of what happened at Rose's house.
Seaman comes to this party after he gets off work. The party is well attended, and everybody is juiced. They've been drinking all afternoon.
It's game. Man, this is too easy. Still can't believe they took a check like that.
Oh, he didn't tell you anything about it?
No, man, I need that money right away, too.
They're still discussing that paycheck incident.
First he takes our checks, and then he holds our money? Who does this guy think he is?
I don't know.
And Rufus is getting more and more agitated that he needs to back up his man Keno.
Let's teach this gringo a lesson. Hey, Jim, Mondo, let's go downstairs. I want to show you guys something.
Sure thing, amigo.
Why are you such Jim? The money, man. Why are you messing with people's lives?
The paycheck, man!
Well,
Keno, I thought we already talked about this. I needed that money right away, man.
Just because you run everything, you can just hold that money from us?
You know, I'm sorry, man. I was just trying to be helpful. I wasn't trying to screw you out of anything.
Jim tries to stop the argument, apologizes, but it was obvious that Rufus and Keno didn't want an apology. They wanted something else.
I'm a man, Holmes. You know, and treat me like a little kid. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't you touch me, man. Hey, don't touch me. I know that you're pissed off, but don't put your hands on me, okay?
So Keno and Seaman get involved in a shoving match, but before punches start to be thrown,
You think you're better than us? You're done, man. You're done.
Dina just goes off into a wild, animalistic rage.
Stop!
He stabs him in the chest, and he turns to get away from the blade. He stabs him in the back. So Seaman pulls his shirt off and staggers up the stairs.
You should have paid us, you piece. That's what you get. You should have gave us our money.
Jim staggers out to his truck. Rose helps him into the truck and drives him to the fire station.
But you wonder what really happened in Rufus's mind to have him just react that way.
When Rufus is drinking, he doesn't need a lot of motivation. He just needs a target. The grand jury indicted Rufus Medina for 1 count of first-degree murder, and no charges were filed against anyone else who testified in front of the grand jury.
8 months later, Rufus Medina pleads guilty to second-degree murder.
Rufus Medina apologizes enormously. The judge thought he was sincere. He gave him a reduced sentence on second-degree murder of 16 years based on his remorse.
Jim Seaman did not deserve to die, especially under these circumstances. This was a gruesome death, and it was an avoidable death.
That's what's so sad about this, is that Jim was a good guy. He had hired these
They still talk about that night on Highway 63 as if the asphalt itself remembers the scream. Low, torn, swallowed instantly by the wind that scrapes across the Texas plains. A sound that vanished before anyone could understand what it meant, a warning the darkness refused to echo. It was the summer of 1992, heat shimmering like liquid metal, leaving the air so dense that even the cicadas seemed to choke on their own buzzing. People still say the horizon felt wrong that week, like the sky was holding its breath, waiting for something to slip through the cracks. And when it did, when the cold case that would haunt this town for decades first took shape, it arrived not with chaos, not with fire or gunshots, but with a quiet disappearance so clean, so sudden, that the silence left behind felt louder than any explosion. It started on a Sunday, 9:17 p.m., a time too late for errands and too early for trouble. A blue Ford pickup drifted along that lonely stretch of highway, windows rolled down, radio humming a country song about heartbreak that, in hindsight, sounded more like prophecy. Inside the truck sat a young woman, 23, bright-eyed, stubborn in a way that made people love her more fiercely than they admitted. Her name was Lena Garrison. She'd been heading home from her shift at the diner, planning to shower, feed her dog, and call her sister before bed. Simple things. Ordinary things. The kind of plans that make the world feel stable. And then, in less than a mile, all of it would unravel. Witnesses later said they saw her truck pulled over on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking like a weak heartbeat in the dark. One driver swore he saw a second vehicle behind it, a pale sedan he couldn't identify. Another insisted there was someone standing beside Lena's door, leaning in, talking, gesturing. But none of them stopped. None of them thought anything was wrong. It was Texas, after all. People helped strangers on the road all the time. A stalled engine, a flat tire, a neighbor lending a hand. Nothing to fear, except the next morning, that blue truck was still there. Empty, doors unlocked, keys dangling from the ignition. And Lena was gone. The sheriff arrived at dawn, boots crunching over gravel scattered like broken teeth across the shoulder. He walked around the truck, peered inside, called Lena's name even though he knew the echo rolling across the highway would be the only answer. Something about the scene felt too still, too arranged, as if someone had pressed pause on a moment and walked away. Her purse was in the passenger seat, bills tucked neatly in her wallet. Her diner apron lay rumpled on the floor, smelling faintly of coffee and grilled onions. There were no signs of a struggle, no footprints leading into the brush, no tire tracks except her own. It was as if the earth beneath her had opened its jaws and swallowed her without leaving a single mark. By 8 a.m., the town knew. They always knew. News travels in places like this the way brush fire races across dry fields, quick, hungry, unstoppable. The diner closed early. Neighbors gathered on porches, whispering theories with the solemn intensity usually reserved for funerals. Mothers tightened their hold on their children. Fathers checked the locks twice. And everywhere people went, the same phrase drifted through the air like a fevered prayer. Something happened on Highway 63. Investigators combed every inch of the shoulder, crawling through thickets, slicing through grass, digging through dirt. They searched ditches, culverts, fences, even abandoned oil pump stations half a mile away. Nothing. Dogs lost the scent only 12 feet from the truck. 12 feet. A distance so short it mocked them. Like someone had plucked her from the world and carried her into thin air. The first suspect was her ex-boyfriend, a mechanic with calloused hands and a reputation for jealousy. But he'd been seen drinking with friends across town. Then came theories about drifters, truckers, escaped convicts, any story that felt large enough to explain something so terrifying. But none of it stuck. None of it fit. The case didn't bend toward logic. It twisted away from it. And then, 3 days later, the first strange detail appeared. A farmer found a shoe in his hayfield. Lena's shoe. Clean. Undamaged. Sitting upright as if someone had placed it there with care. The field was 12 miles from Highway 63, fenced off, locked, accessible only by a dirt road so narrow it could barely fit a truck. No footprints, no vehicle tracks. Just one shoe in the center of the grass, the morning dew clinging to it like sweat. Investigators photographed it from every angle, lifted it gently into a plastic bag, shook their heads in confusion. The shoe offered no trail, no direction, no hint of the path it had traveled. It was a message, perhaps, or a warning. Something deliberate, something designed to taunt. Rumors grew like weeds. Some whispered that Lena had been taken by someone she knew, someone who understood the land better than the police ever could. Others insisted it was the work of an outsider who slipped through town like a ghost, leaving nothing but tension in his wake. A few leaned toward the darkest possibility, that she never left that truck alive, and whoever moved the shoe was only trying to mislead them. But no matter how sharp the theories became, the truth refused to surface. Days turned into weeks. The search teams thinned out. Patrol cars returned to their regular routes. Reporters drifted away, chasing fresher stories. And yet the dread lingered, coiling around the town like smoke from a fire that refused to die. People avoided the highway after sundown. Some swore the air there felt colder. Others claimed they heard footsteps behind them when they pulled over, even though they always stood alone. Then came the phone call. 2 weeks after Lena vanished, the sheriff's office received a report from a gas station attendant about a young woman matching her description. She'd come in just before midnight, shaken, barefoot, dust clinging to her legs like she'd been running through fields. The attendant said she whispered for help, barely audible, like her voice had been scraped raw. But before he could reach the phone, she bolted back outside, disappearing into the dark beyond the pumps. Security cameras captured only a blur, a shape, a shadow, the flicker of movement. No face, no clear image, no confirmation. But the detail that chilled investigators the most was what she left behind. A palm print on the counter, smeared with something that looked like mud, but wasn't. Lab tests said it was clay mixed with traces of engine oil, and something organic they couldn't identify. For days, officers searched the area around the gas station, tracing roads and back trails, interviewing every traveler who passed through. But just like before, the lead dissolved into nothing. By the end of the second month, the case had lost its heat. They still worked it, still sifted evidence, still held on to hope like a frayed rope. But the fire was gone. Files thickened with dead ends. Witness accounts contradicted each other, and each time they felt close to a breakthrough, the trail snapped shut again. A cold case in the making. But in 1992, they didn't use that phrase lightly. Cold meant forgotten. Cold meant unsolved. Cold meant a name slowly drifting from memory until it became a ghost story. Parents used to scare their children into coming home before dark. Yet for this town, Lena's disappearance was too raw to fade, too sharp, too wrong. It didn't drift into obscurity. It carved itself into the soil, into the walls of the sheriff's office, into the eyes of her family, who kept their porch light on every night for a year, waiting for footsteps that never came. Investigators tried to move on. They had to. But the case held on to them like a hand gripping their shirts from behind. Officers woke from dreams of the blue truck sitting empty on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking into the void. Others confessed they avoided that stretch of road altogether. The discomfort was universal, unexplainable. A presence everyone felt but no one could name. Then the whispers began. Truckers passing through late at night claimed they saw her. Lena, standing by the roadside, hair blowing across her face, expression unreadable. Some said she looked lost. Others said she looked furious. One insisted she raised her hand, trying to signal for help, before vanishing in the blink of an eye. Stories like that spread fast, not because people believed them, but because they feared they might be true. Her family clung to hope, yet hope became a fragile thing, cracking a little more with each empty day. They held vigils, printed flyers, prayed, cried, waited. And through it all, the highway remained silent, keeping its secret buried deep beneath the asphalt. 3 months, 6 months, a year, and then nothing. Silence so heavy it felt permanent, until 30 years later, when the case snapped open again, unexpectedly, violently, with the kind of revelation that doesn't just solve a mystery, it tears a town apart. For 30 years, the case sat dormant, buried beneath layers of dust and disappointment, tucked into the deepest corner of a filing cabinet no one liked to open. The label on the folder had faded to a pale gray, the ink almost ghost-like. Garrison, Lena, 1992, highway case. Officers came and went, promotions shuffled desks, the sheriff retired, deputies moved to bigger counties, and the case slipped further into the background. But every so often, someone, usually a rookie with too much optimism or an officer with insomnia, would pull the folder out, flip through the brittle pages, and feel the same cold shiver that had gripped the town all those years ago. The same unspoken question. How does someone vanish that completely? Then one morning, long after people assumed the world had forgotten, a letter appeared on the steps of the sheriff's office. No postage, no return address. Just a white envelope, edges sharp, the paper almost too clean for a place where wind carried dust like sandpaper. Deputy Holden found it at 6:42 a.m., the sun barely rising over the horizon, slicing the sky into red and gold. He picked it up, expecting a complaint or an unsigned threat, common enough in a small, restless town. But when he saw the name scrawled across the front, his breath hitched. Lena Garrison, not attention, not case. Just her name. He brought it inside, placed it on the evidence table, and stared at it with the same unease people feel when they sense a storm before seeing clouds. Something about it felt wrong, deliberate, heavy with intention. The sheriff, a new one now, younger, careful, too aware of the town's ghosts, arrived and slit it open with a dull blade. Inside was a single sheet of paper, neatly folded, smelling faintly of cedar and engine oil. 4 words were written in blocky handwriting, the ink pressed deep into the fibers. "You missed something. Look again." No signature, no date, no hint of who wrote it. Just a command that felt like a voice from the past reaching up through the floorboards. Investigators dismissed anonymous letters all the time, but this one struck a nerve. It cracked something open. The sheriff ordered the case file retrieved. Officers set aside current reports. And for the first time in decades, the cold case room, the one with the flickering light and the eerie silence, buzzed with energy. Photos of the truck were pinned to the board. Maps of Highway 63 spread across tables. Detectives traced old routes with trembling fingers, revisiting every detail, every witness account, every dead-end lead. They pored over transcripts, trying to hear past the words, trying to catch what might have slipped between them. And slowly, like dust rising from forgotten floorboards, the unease began to return. The sense that something about the original investigation had been off. Not wrong, but incomplete. It was Deputy Holden who caught it first. A photograph of the truck taken from the passenger side showed something he couldn't stop staring at. The hazard lights blinking. They had been blinking when the first officer arrived, and according to the report, they were still faintly flashing when the tow truck hauled the vehicle away hours later. Hazard lights didn't last that long, not on a 1992 Ford with a battery nearly a decade old at the time. He checked the original mechanic notes. Battery only had about 20 minutes of life in hazard mode. So how had they blinked for nearly 6 hours? Someone must have returned to the truck. Someone must have turned them back on. It was a detail so small, so easily overlooked that no one questioned it in 92. But now it felt like a flare fired into the sky. If someone had returned, at what time? For what reason? And why had they done it without leaving a single trace? The letter pushed them forward. The inconsistency with the lights pulled them deeper. And then the sheriff made a decision that would kick open the door to a past everyone thought was sealed shut. He ordered a full reinvestigation of the original crime scene. The highway had changed over the years, widened slightly, repaved twice, shoulders reinforced. But the land around it, those open fields, those weathered fences, the burnt orange soil, still held echoes of what had happened. Or what hadn't happened. That was the unsettling part. Standing on the shoulder was like stepping into a room where a tragedy once unfolded, knowing the walls still remembered what you couldn't see. They searched the area again, this time with drones, high-resolution cameras, and ground-penetrating radar, technology that didn't exist in the early 90s. Officers walked the length of the shoulder, sunlight carving long shadows at their feet. They scanned dirt, grass, rocks, drainage pipes. And 6 hours into the search, a deputy near the north edge of the shoulder found something impossible. A fragment of fabric, wedged deep under a slab of concrete near a drainage mouth. Worn. Sun-bleached, nearly fused to the earth. Lab analysis confirmed it within days, cotton fibers matching Lena's diner uniform. But here's the impossible part. That drainage pipe hadn't been installed until 1999, 7 years after Lena vanished. 7 years after the original search covered that exact area and found nothing. Meaning someone returned, someone placed it, someone wanted it to be found, but not too easily. The town's heartbeat quickened. Old fear resurfaced. Coffee shop conversations grew tense. People whispered again the way they had decades earlier, glancing over their shoulders, wondering which neighbor, which friend, which familiar face might be tied to the mystery. And then something else surfaced, something darker. One of the original officers from 1992, a man people remembered for his stiff posture and quiet voice, requested a meeting with the sheriff. They sat in a dim corner of the station, far from the bustle of the cold case team. His hands trembled, a mix of age and something else. Regret, maybe. Or dread. He confessed he had withheld a detail from the original report. Not intentionally, he claimed, not maliciously. He said he'd dismissed it as nothing, convinced it didn't matter. But now, 3 decades later, the memory gnawed at him like a rusted nail buried beneath skin. He said that when he had first approached the truck, he'd smelled something. Something faint, metallic, mixed with a chemical tang he couldn't identify. He'd chalked it up to engine heat or spilled coolant. But the smell stayed with him for days, clinging to his clothes, his hands, even his hair. He didn't report it because there was no evidence, no container, no stain, nothing to verify it. But the odor was unmistakable, like the residue from old oil drums used in a specific location near town, a facility that had closed down in the early 90s, an industrial site that only a handful of people had access to, a site that would soon become the new center of the investigation. Before they could process this revelation, something else arrived. Another letter. Same style, same ink, same cedar scent. This time, placed in the drop box outside the station. "You're looking in the wrong direction." The sheriff felt the hairs on his neck rise. Someone was watching the investigation, closely. Someone who knew details no outsider could know. Someone who understood the timeline so intimately that every message landed like a nudge or a threat. The letters became the fire that pushed investigators into the abandoned industrial yard on the edge of town. Rusted metal, cracked concrete, empty sheds with doors hanging crooked. Old signs warning of hazardous materials now faded into ghosts of warnings long ignored. They searched the site with Geiger counters, metal detectors, dogs trained to sniff out chemicals and decomposition. For hours there was nothing, just echoes, dust, and the unsettling sense of being watched. And then a dog stopped, not barking, not whining, just stopped, nose pressed to a slab of concrete near the back of the yard. Tail stiff, body trembling. Handlers exchanged glances. Everyone stepped back. Ground-penetrating radar was brought in. The first sweep returned static. The second sweep returned something else, a cavity beneath the slab. The team held their breath. They brought in drills, jackhammers, floodlights. Dust filled the air. Concrete splintered, cracked, gave way. And beneath it, not a body, not remains, a metal box, large, heavy, sealed with rusted bolts. No markings, no labels, just a cold steel container buried like a secret someone never intended to see daylight again. They pried it open. Inside was a stack of photographs, dozens of them, each one wrapped in plastic. Grainy, dark, time-stained images. Some were of Highway 63, some of the diner, some of fields, some of vehicles. And then there were the ones that twisted every stomach in the room. Photographs of the truck on the night of Lena's disappearance, taken from angles no officer ever could have captured, meaning the photographer had been there, watching, close enough to frame the scene deliberately, close enough to hear the hazard lights clicking, close enough to take a photograph of Lena herself. One image, blurred, her face half-turned, eyes wide with something caught between confusion and fear. And then the final photograph, the one that changed everything, a picture of a man standing near the blue Ford truck, face hidden in the shadow of a baseball cap. But the outline was clear. The build, the stance, the uniform. A law enforcement uniform from their own department. Someone inside, someone trusted, someone who had stood at crime scenes, worn the badge, shaken hands with families, heard confessions, and sworn an oath. And now, someone the town would soon learn was the unexpected suspect who had lived among them the entire time, waiting for the past to catch up. The photograph hit the department like a lightning strike, silent, blinding, cutting through every layer of certainty they thought they had. A uniformed figure, half hidden in shadow, standing beside the blue Ford truck on the night Lena vanished. Not a stranger, not a drifter, not an outsider slipping through town unnoticed. No, the outline was unmistakable. The proportions, the squared shoulders, the hang of the duty belt. This was one of their own. A deputy, a cop, someone who should have been protecting her. But the photograph was too dark, too grainy, too warped by time to identify the face. It gave just enough to ignite suspicion, but not enough to name the man behind the shadow. That ambiguity spread through the department like a poison. Officers exchanged side glances they didn't mean to show. Conversations tapered off when certain footsteps approached. Trust, once the backbone of any station, began to fracture. Quietly, invisibly, like ice under pressure. The sheriff laid the photographs on the conference table, each image aligned like pieces of a puzzle that refused to connect. Floodlights hummed overhead. Dust floated in slow spirals. No one spoke for nearly a minute. It was Deputy Holden who broke the silence, his voice barely holding steady. Someone was documenting the scene like they knew what was coming. The sheriff nodded. Or like they were staging it. The weight of that possibility settled over the room. Thick, suffocating, undeniable. If someone in uniform had orchestrated what happened on Highway 63, then every assumption made in 92 had been built on sand. If the photographs were accurate, then the investigation had been compromised from day one. Not by incompetence, by design. The sheriff ordered a full internal review. Every deputy who'd served in 1992 was re-examined, where they lived, who they talked to, what their duties were, which calls they'd responded to. Personnel files were scanned, old reports scrutinized, every officer's signature compared, every shift log revisited. But time had done its damage. Memories blurred, records missing pages, retired deputies gone, some buried, some moved states away. Still, one name rose repeatedly, Deputy Raymond Knox. He'd been on duty the night Lena disappeared. He'd responded to the scene an hour after the first officer arrived. He'd taken statements from passing drivers. He'd handled evidence bags. At the time, Knox had been known as quiet, diligent, unremarkable. A man who blended in easily, whose presence faded the moment he stepped out of a room. The perfect camouflage. But there was another detail, one that had slipped unnoticed for decades. Knox had worked part-time security at the very industrial yard where the metal box had been buried. Few remembered this. Fewer had cared. He'd left the department in 1995, claiming burnout, before moving to a neighboring county where he lived a modest, invisible life. No children, no spouse, no history of violence, no complaints, nothing that would raise suspicion, until now, before anyone could run a background check, before they could even confirm whether Knox still lived at the last known address. Another letter arrived. Same scent, same paper, same blocky handwriting. You're close, but not close enough. This time, the letter contained something else. A strip of old film negative, brittle at the edges, showing part of a man's face, jawline, cheekbone, the brim of a cap. Not enough to identify him. Just enough to burn the image into their minds like a threat or a dare. The sheriff didn't sleep that night. Lights stayed on in the conference room until dawn. Officers circled theories, ripped them apart, rebuilt them. Fear crept into the town's quiet corners again. People talked. People guessed. People remembered Knox as the officer who never smiled, who spoke only when necessary, who drove patrols alone even when paired shifts were recommended. But no one could say they ever felt unsafe around him. No one could point to a single moment that hinted at darkness, which made it worse. The next day, officers drove out to Knox's property, a small, weathered house on the edge of the county line, surrounded by brittle grass and an old windmill that creaked like it was complaining. The yard was empty. The porch light burned even though it was noon. A newspaper lay in the dirt, untouched, stamped with yesterday's date. No car in the driveway. No footsteps leading to the house. Just silence. They knocked. No answer. They circled to the back. The screen door creaked open with the breeze. Inside, the house smelled of dust and engine oil, the same scent that clung to the anonymous letters. Books lay stacked on the table. Tools lined the walls in unnervingly precise rows. The house felt abandoned and lived in at the same time, like someone had stepped out only minutes ago, but also hadn't truly been home in years. Then they found the photographs, pinned to a corkboard in a room that looked more like a bunker than a living space. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Some dated, some not, some showing random stretches of highway, others showing the diner where Lena worked. Some capturing cars pulling off the shoulder, some taken through foggy windows. But there were also images of people, waitresses, gas station clerks, truck drivers, teenagers walking home from school, unaware they were being watched. And then Lena, not one photo, dozens. Some from weeks before she vanished, some from days before, one from the very morning of her disappearance, taken from a distance, the lens aimed through the branches of a pecan tree near the diner entrance. Lena smiling at someone off camera. Innocent, ordinary, completely unaware. But the photo that froze every officer in the room was the one pinned dead center of the board. A picture of Knox standing beside Lena's truck, taken by someone else. Someone who had been watching him as he watched her. Someone who had documented everything. Someone who was still out there, because the angle, the framing, the height, it was clear. Deputy Knox did not take that photograph. Someone else had positioned it. Someone else was present that night. Someone else had witnessed the moment that would ignite 3 decades of silence, pain, and mystery. And that person had not come forward. Not then. Not now. The sheriff felt a chill crawl up his spine. Someone had always been a step ahead. Someone had been feeding them just enough information to push them forward, but never enough to reveal themselves. Someone wanted them to chase Knox, but not find him. At least, not yet. Then came the radio call. A vehicle matching Knox's old Chevy pickup had been spotted abandoned near an overpass, 12 miles from his home. Officers raced to the location, adrenaline spiking, the sense of being watched sharpening like a blade. They found the truck, keys still in the ignition, door open, engine warm, and on the driver's seat, a note. Just 2 words this time, scrawled in a hurried slash of ink. Not him. The meaning hit hard. The letters, the photographs, the staged evidence, the perfectly timed revelations. This wasn't a killer taunting them. It wasn't Knox playing a game. It was someone else. Someone orchestrating everything with meticulous precision. Someone using Knox as bait. Someone who had been watching the investigation unfold like a puppet show. Someone who knew enough about the original crime to manipulate every detail. Back at the house, officers scoured every corner for traces of Knox. Hair, fingerprints, fibers. But the place felt wiped clean. Too clean. As if someone had scrubbed away any evidence of his recent presence. And yet the rooms didn't feel looted. They felt curated, arranged, controlled. Which meant one thing. Knox had either been taken or had been hiding from someone far more dangerous. As evening fell, the sheriff gathered the team. The sky outside bled into deep orange before surrendering to purple. Wind rattled the blinds. The conference table, covered in photos, maps, and scattered notes, looked like an altar to something dark and ancient. We're being led, the sheriff said quietly. Not by Knox, by someone who knows this case better than we do. Holden swallowed. Someone who was there that night. Or someone who's been there every night since. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then the sheriff pointed at the earliest letter. You missed something. Look again. Look again at what? At whom? They reviewed the old case logs once more. They revisited witness statements from 1992. They listened to the recorded interview with the gas station attendant, the one who claimed he'd seen a barefoot woman whisper for help before disappearing into the dark. His voice trembled on the tape. She looked scared, like she'd been running from someone. Did she say anything else? The investigator asked. Yes, she said he's still here. The officers in the conference room froze. They had all assumed he meant the abductor. But what if she wasn't talking about the person who took her? What if she meant someone else? Someone she recognized. Someone who had followed her. Someone who had watched her long before that night. Someone who had never stopped watching. The room seemed to contract with that realization. And that was when the sheriff made the call that would push the case from unsettling into terrifying. He ordered the team to re-interview every witness from the original investigation. Because someone among them had been lying. Someone had been there. Someone had seen everything. And someone was waiting, watching, as the truth crept closer. The letters weren't warnings. They were invitations. A door cracking open to a story far bigger, far darker, and far more personal than anyone in the room had ever imagined. They began with the first witness on the original list, the one who had reported seeing a pale sedan parked behind Lena's truck that night, a man named Harold Dunley. Back then, he had been in his mid-40s, a delivery driver, quiet, withdrawn. Known mostly for keeping to himself and smoking cheap cigarettes from the gas station near his route. In 1992, Harold claimed he saw a vehicle behind Lena's truck, but couldn't identify the make or model. 30 years later, the team found him sitting on the porch of a weather-beaten house on the far edge of town, oxygen tank hissing softly at his side, eyes sunken but alert. But he listened as the sheriff explained the re-investigation. He didn't speak, didn't blink, just stared ahead as if watching a memory replay behind his eyes. When they asked if he still remembered the sedan, he nodded once. Slowly. White, he rasped. Old, boxy, like the kind cops used to drive. Officers exchanged a look. The sheriff leaned forward. You never mentioned that in '92. Harold's voice cracked like dry leaves. Didn't think it mattered. Lie. It was too rehearsed, too clean. His fingers trembled, not with age, but with restraint. The sheriff pressed harder. Harold, did you see who was standing at her truck? For a moment, there was only the wind brushing across the porch, rattling a loose panel of sheet metal. Then Harold inhaled, slow and shaky, like he was gathering courage he'd spent 30 years burying. I saw someone, he whispered. Didn't know who. Didn't want to. The sheriff felt the temperature drop. Why didn't you report it? Because he told me not to. Every officer froze. Who? The sheriff asked. Harold looked at the sheriff, not past him, not through him, but at him, with eyes that seemed filled with an old terror that had never fully healed. You won't believe me, he said. Try us. Harold swallowed, throat tight. It wasn't one person. It was two of them. Two men. One standing at the driver's door talking to her, the other standing farther back, watching the road. Can you describe them? Harold shook his head so violently his oxygen tube nearly slipped. One wore a uniform, the other didn't, but they both looked like they belonged there, like they knew exactly what they were doing. That detail punched through the room like a shot fired in close quarters. Two men. Two, not one, which meant Knox couldn't have acted alone, if he acted at all. Then came the detail Harold had held for 30 years, the one that had gnawed at him so deeply he couldn't look an officer in the eye for decades. I saw the one in uniform walk toward me, he whispered. He told me to keep driving, said it was official business, said if I stopped I'd get in trouble. The sheriff's voice hardened. Did you recognize him? Harold hesitated. His eyes darted to the yard, to the road, to the empty horizon, anywhere but toward the officers standing in front of him. I can't say, he croaked. Harold. Silence. Then Harold exhaled, defeated. It wasn't Knox. The room stiffened. Then who was it? Harold's voice thinned until it was barely audible. Someone higher. The sheriff pressed again. Name him. But Harold's lips clamped shut. His body tensed. His eyes glistened with fear so palpable it felt like a living thing. Can't, he whispered. He's still here. The same words Lena had whispered at the gas station 30 years ago. Words that had been dismissed then, but now sliced through every assumption. He's still here. Later that night, Harold suffered a severe panic attack. He refused further questions. The sheriff posted a patrol car outside his home in case the fear wasn't paranoia, but prophecy. From there, the team moved down the witness list. Most gave vague answers. broken memories, half-truths lacquered with time. But one woman, Maribel Ortiz, offered something new. Maribel owned the Shell station near the highway. She'd been the one who turned over the security footage of the barefoot woman who resembled Lena. For years, she'd said she didn't remember anything else. But now, with the case reopened and fear resurfacing, she seemed shaken enough to speak. She revealed that on the night the woman appeared, another car had pulled up to the pumps just moments before she vanished. A car Maribel thought belonged to a police officer. The sheriff leaned forward. "Which officer?" Maribel closed her eyes, trying to conjure a memory blurred by age and fear. But the expression on her face wasn't confusion. It was dread, sharp and immediate. "I don't want to say," she muttered. "Ma'am, we need names." She shook her head. "You don't understand. He wasn't alone. 2 men again. One inside, one outside, watching." "Maribel," the sheriff urged. "Someone is manipulating this investigation. We need to know who had access to that station. Who would have chased her off?" Maribel trembled. "I think she tried to hide behind the ice freezer," she whispered. "I think she was trying to get away from someone she knew." The room darkened, as though the truth itself dimmed the air. "Who was it?" the sheriff repeated. Maribel slowly shook her head, refusing, tears forming. "He still comes here," she said. "Every few months, even now." Officers' hearts slammed against their ribs. "Even now? Even after 30 years? The sheriff slid a photo across the counter. Old deputies from 1992 lined up for a department event. Maribel's eyes scanned the row. Her breath hitched. She lifted a shaking finger, hesitated, then pointed, not at Knox, at a different man entirely, a man who had retired with honors, a man known for charity drives, for coaching softball, for organizing town parades, a man respected, trusted, beloved, Deputy Marshal Everett Ward. For a moment, no one spoke. The name alone tilted the entire investigation sideways. Ward was a pillar of the community in '92, a symbol of reliability. The man parents told their kids to approach if they were ever in danger. The kind of officer who waved at strangers and knew the name of every shop owner in town. The idea that he had been at the scene, undocumented, unmentioned, wasn't just shocking. It was seismic. The sheriff's next steps were immediate. Locate Ward, question him, compare his old reports with witness accounts. But Ward's address led them nowhere. His mail sat untouched, his phone disconnected, his truck gone. It was as if he'd vanished the moment the investigation began stirring again. Not a coincidence, a reaction. Someone had warned him. Someone had been feeding information to the wrong person. The sheriff locked down the department. Phones were confiscated, computers checked, internal systems monitored. Every officer became a suspect. Tension strangled the air. A sense of paranoia took root, growing steadily, forcing everyone to question who might be passing information to someone on the outside. Then, just before midnight, while the sheriff reviewed Ward's old files, another letter appeared, slipped under the station door without a sound, without triggering the security alarm. This one had 7 words. "You're following the shadow, not the man." The sheriff felt his blood turn cold, not just because of the message, but because the letter was delivered inside the station, bypassing locked doors, alarms, cameras. Someone had been inside. Someone with access. Someone who knew the building better than the officers themselves. Holden noticed something else about the letter. The cedar scent was fading. The ink was fresher. The handwriting slightly rushed. Whoever was writing them was no longer calm. The game had shifted. Perhaps the closest crack in the armor appeared when the sheriff revisited every call log from 1990. One entry caught his attention. A brief, seemingly insignificant note about a patrol car stationed near Highway 63 for 30 minutes before Lena disappeared. The patrol car belonged to Everett Ward, and the log claimed he was patrolling alone, unusual for that night, when pairs were recommended due to a string of robberies in a nearby county. But Ward's partner, a young deputy at the time, had called in sick, except hospital records showed no such visit. The partner never checked in, never filed a sick report. And weeks after Lena vanished, That same deputy resigned suddenly and moved states away. He died 10 years later. A death ruled accidental, but the sheriff had a new suspicion. Ward wasn't working alone, which meant the second man Harold saw on the shoulder, the one not in uniform, could have been the missing partner. The timeline twisted, threads connecting, tightening, looping back into an ever-shrinking circle. Ward at the highway, Ward at the gas station, Ward referenced in witness statements, Ward gone the moment the reinvestigation started. And hovering above all of it, the letters. Not him. You're close. You missed something. You're looking in the wrong direction. You're following the shadow, not the man. Was Ward the shadow? Or was he the man? Or was Ward neither? Just another pawn in a larger design orchestrated by someone still hidden, someone who had been watching for decades. The sheriff sat back, exhausted, mind spinning. Holden looked across the table and voiced the thought they had all been trying to avoid. What if the one sending the letters isn't the killer, but the witness? The sheriff frowned. Witness to what? Holden swallowed. Everything. The room went silent, because suddenly the letters didn't feel like threats. They felt like confessions. Slow, careful, breadcrumb-thin confessions from someone who had been there from the beginning. Someone who saw the two men at the highway. Someone who saw Ward at the gas station. Someone who photographed Knox. Someone who buried the metal box. Someone who had been waiting for 30 years for the truth to be dragged into the light, but always from the shadows. A watcher. A ghost in the town's periphery. Someone neither guilty nor innocent. Someone who refused to step into the open. Because, perhaps, the one who watched everything was also being watched. And as the sheriff followed that thought to its darkest corner, he realized the cold case wasn't just reopening, it was waking up. That night, the sheriff couldn't shake the feeling that the walls themselves were listening. The station felt smaller, tighter, as if the air had thickened into something that pressed against the skin. Every time a floorboard creaked or a radio crackled, heads snapped up. Paranoia had crept between the desks, circling the officers with silent, unseen hands. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to flicker with unease, humming with a frequency just sharp enough to fray nerves. If the letter writer was a witness, the sheriff reasoned, then they had seen things that should have destroyed them, things that could unravel a town, a police department, maybe even the entire foundation of the case. But they hadn't come forward, not 30 years ago, not now. Why? What were they protecting? Themselves? The town? The truth? Holden proposed a theory that sent a chill through the room. What if the witness wasn't just watching Ward or Knox or Lena? What if the witness was watching all of them because they were trapped in the same situation, forced to see what they saw? A forced witness, someone who couldn't intervene, someone who had been coerced into silence, someone left alive only to ensure they never spoke, someone who carried the truth the way others carry scars. The sheriff turned to the case board. Lines connected faces. Lena, Ward, Knox, the unidentified partner, the gas station attendant, the farmer, the delivery driver, and floating at the center of it all, like a shadow made of ink, the unknown witness with the cedar-scented letters and the impossible access. The investigation pivoted again, circling back to Ward's missing partner from 1992, Deputy Colin Reeves, 24 years old at the time. Clean record? Rookie? No disciplinary flags? No psychological concerns? A ghost before he ever left town. They tracked Reeves's movements through old driver's licenses, public records, employment logs. He'd lived in 6 different cities after resigning. Worked construction, then bartending, then security. Every job cut short after a few months. No pattern except instability. Then the accident 10 years ago. A fall from scaffolding at a job site. Case closed. But a different file surfaced that knotted every stomach in the room. A medical report from 2 years before his death, filed at a hospital 3 counties away. Broken ribs, a fractured nose, a concussion, no police report, no explanation, just a single note from the attending nurse. Patient refuses to identify assailant, displays extreme fear response, claims he knows where I am. The sheriff stared at the note until the letters blurred. Reeves wasn't running from guilt, he whispered. He was running from someone else. Someone who had been there that night. Someone more dangerous than Ward. Someone Reeves couldn't escape. The thought spread like cracked ice. If Ward was only one piece, who was the other man? The one not in uniform. The one Harold saw. The one who watched the road. The one no one had ever identified. The sheriff called for a deeper dive into local employment records from 1991 to 1993. Construction crews, contractors, maintenance workers, delivery services, industrial yard workers, anyone connected to the facilities Ward and Knox had ties to. Meanwhile, Holden revisited the photographs in the metal box. He stared at the image of Knox standing by the truck, circled by darkness. But something caught his eye. Something he hadn't noticed before. A reflection. In the chrome bumper of Lena's truck. It was faint, distorted, but unmistakably human. Someone standing slightly behind the camera. Someone short. Someone thin. Someone wearing glasses. Holden enlarged the reflection on his monitor, grain stretching like weathered cloth. The shape remained blurred, the face unidentifiable. But the silhouette didn't match Ward, Knox, or Reeves. 3 men at the scene. 3, and only one had been accounted for. The sheriff called the team together, the conference room filled with the rustling of paper, the scrape of chair legs, the crackle of old evidence logs sliding across the table. "We've been focusing on the wrong people," he said. Ward was there. Knox was there. Reeves was likely nearby. But someone else was at the scene too. Someone the witness saw. Someone who's been hiding in plain sight. Holden added, "Someone who took the photos. Someone who's been sending us the letters." A deputy frowned. But why would he expose Ward and Knox if he was involved? Holden's voice dropped. Because maybe he wasn't involved. Maybe he was powerless. Maybe he's trying to finish what he couldn't do back then. The sheriff exhaled. Or maybe he's trying to shift blame. The room buzzed with tension. Then the lights flickered. Just once. Barely noticeable, but enough to freeze the air. Something was wrong. The sheriff ordered a sweep of the building. 2 officers walked the perimeter. Holden checked the electrical panels. Everything appeared normal. Too normal. When the power steadied, the sheriff noticed something on the floor near the entrance. A flash drive. Black. Unmarked. Still warm, as if recently touched. The sheriff felt the dread before he even bent to pick it up. He plugged it into the conference computer. A single video file appeared. No date stamp. No title. Just 5 seconds of footage. A static shot of the old industrial yard. The same corner where the metal box had been buried. But this video showed something else. Something beneath the frame of darkness that made the room collectively inhale. A shadow. Human. Moving. Then a hand. Thin, trembling, rose into the frame and pointed directly at the camera before the footage cut to black. The sheriff replayed it. The hand wasn't threatening. It was pleading, pointing not toward the camera, but past it. Toward something behind the cameraman. Something approaching. Something the witness couldn't outrun. The sheriff's pulse hammered. Whoever filmed this wasn't controlling the scene. They were documenting it. They were terrified. They were trapped. If the footage was real, it meant the witness had been lured to the industrial yard at some point in the last few days. Maybe even hours, which meant they were in danger. Or already gone. The sheriff ordered a forensic analysis of the video. Compression patterns, metadata, background noise. Holden filtered the audio until static gave way to a faint sound. A voice, just one word, barely a whisper. Run! The sheriff felt the entire case tilt. Whoever the witness was, they weren't playing games. They weren't taunting. They were warning. From what? From whom? The sheriff snapped orders. Check Ward's financials, associates, any relatives. Cross-reference Reeves's medical reports with emergency calls from the early 90s. Look for anyone connected to the industrial yard. Anyone with access to old police equipment. Anyone with a history of intimidation. But the answer arrived before the search even began. Holden found it in an overlooked corner of Ward's personnel file. A small handwritten note clipped to the back of a page. Ride-along authorized, J.C., May 14th, 1992. J.C. A name the sheriff had not encountered once in the entire investigation. He opened the ride-along logs. There it was again. Same initials, J.C., next to 4 separate dates, all clustered around the time Lena disappeared. Ride-alongs were meant for trainees, students, community observers, people who wanted to learn. But the sheriff recognized something else. 2 of the ride-along forms were signed not by Ward, but by the previous sheriff. A sheriff who, records showed, had accepted early retirement just 3 months after the cold case froze. A sheriff who died 5 years later under circumstances labeled natural, though several notes referred to unresolved stress-related issues. The initials stared back at the sheriff like a threat from the past. JC. Who was he? A trainee? A volunteer? A civilian? Or someone given access he never should have had? The sheriff expanded the document. A full name appeared at the top of the form. Jonas Creed. No photo, no address, just the name. A name that had never once surfaced in 30 years. A name that had never been connected to law enforcement. A name that had been quietly erased from nearly every document except the ones someone forgot to shred. The sheriff felt a weight settle in his chest. Holden whispered the question no one wanted to ask. If Creed was a trainee, how did he connect to Ward? And Knox? And Reeves? The sheriff didn't answer. Instead, his eyes fell on the grainy reflection in the truck's bumper. The thin man, the glasses, the silhouette that didn't match any of the known suspects. A silhouette that could match Jonas Creed. 3 men at the scene. Ward, Knox, Creed. And if Creed was the photographer, then he was the one recording everything. The one sending the letters? The one who saw everything. But that begged the question. If Creed was alive and sending clues, why hadn't he come forward? What kept him silent for 30 years? What was he running from? The sheriff stared at the final frame of the video, the trembling hand pointing at something behind the camera. Then he noticed something chilling, a faint blurry figure stepping into the background. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a uniform, and for the first time, the sheriff realized the terrible possibility. The person Jonas Creed feared, the person he recorded, the person he wanted them to find, might not be Ward, or Knox, or Reeves, but someone still working inside the department. Someone who had been watching the investigation from the beginning. Someone waiting for the moment the truth would get too close. Someone with access. Someone dangerous. Someone who had been hiding in plain sight for decades. The sheriff whispered the words like a curse. There's a 4th man. The sheriff stared at the grainy silhouette in that final video frame. Broad shoulders, the unmistakable drape of a police uniform, a presence that absorbed the darkness around it like a void. A 4th man. A figure appearing just before the footage cut short. A figure who somehow had stayed completely invisible in every official record, every witness account, every investigation for 30 years. A figure who stood behind Jonas Creed, watching, approaching, closing in. Holden replayed the frame again and again. Each time the sheriff felt the same tightening in his chest. An instinct older than training, older than logic, a sense that whatever they were seeing was not a ghost from the past, but something active and dangerously close. This was someone on the inside, the sheriff murmured. Holden nodded slowly. Someone who knew Creed was recording, and didn't want that recording to exist. The sheriff stepped back from the screen. The video had no metadata, no timestamps, no malfunctioning pixels that suggested it had been altered. This was raw footage, captured on a device the police had never found, delivered to them without explanation. A breadcrumb left on their doorstep, warm from the hand that placed it there. Creed's alive, Holden said quietly. Or at least he was when this was filmed. The sheriff didn't answer. His eyes went to the map plastered across the wall, routes connecting the industrial yard, Highway 63, Ward's old patrol zones, the gas station, the diner. Now, a new shape emerged. A triangle. 3 key points. 3 sightings. 3 men identified. And a 4th point, hovering just beyond reach. A 4th man. A 4th presence. A 4th shadow. We have to assume he's watching us, the sheriff whispered. If he's still alive, he's been tracking this investigation for 30 years. He might be listening right now. Holden's eyes flicked toward the vents, the cameras, the dark corners of the room. Suddenly, every shadow felt too deep, every sound too soft. Then we stop talking, Holden said. We move silently, off the grid. But the sheriff shook his head. He's already ahead of us. Every move we've made, he's anticipated. The question that hovered unspoken between them was simple, devastating. How do you catch someone who has been hunting you for decades? They began by investigating Creed. What little remained of his history was a patchwork of inconsistencies: addresses without occupants, jobs without contact names, a social security number used in 3 counties, and then suddenly abandoned. Whoever Jonas Creed was, he didn't want to be found. But someone else wanted him hidden even more. It was Holden who discovered a detail that made the sheriff's blood run cold. Creed's application for ride-alongs listed a reference: a local business owner named J.L. Merritt, who had once supervised community trainees. Merritt had died in 1994, but his signature on Creed's form was dated 1990. Forged, meaning someone inside the department approved Creed's access under Merritt's name after Merritt was already dead. And only one group of people had that authority in 1992: senior officers: Ward, Knox, Reeves, and the unnamed 4th man. The sheriff pulled the personnel file from that year, flipping through name after name until he reached the top of the list: Chief Marshal Douglas Keaton. In 1992, he was the highest-ranking officer in the county besides the sheriff. Known for discipline, for stern leadership, for keeping quiet when he should have asked questions. Retired in 1996, moved 2 counties away, died in 2008, or so the official record said. But Holden found something else: a death certificate signed by a physician who had also died the following year in a hunting accident. No autopsy, no burial record, no obituary, no family confirmation. And the line for body identification was left blank. The sheriff exhaled sharply. Keaton didn't die. He disappeared. Holden stared at the file. If Keaton forged Creed's access, if he was the one pulling the strings, the sheriff finished the thought. Then he's the 4th man. The room felt colder. But suspicion wasn't proof. Not yet. The sheriff ordered all available deputies into the field. They began searching for Keaton's last known address: a cabin registered in a false name. Trucks sped through gravel roads. Officers swept through abandoned barns. They searched for any trace of Keaton, any hint of Creed, any sign of Ward. But the forest swallowed footprints. The wind erased tire marks. Everything smelled of emptiness! Until Officer Ramirez discovered a clue that changed the trajectory of the investigation. A cabin, hidden deep in the woods, unmarked, uninhabited, dust undisturbed except for a single set of footprints leading to the door. Inside, the air was still. Furniture covered with sheets like ghosts draped in cloth. A fireplace with ashes too fresh to be old, and a table with one object placed in the center: a recorder, a tiny outdated device. Already playing, Ramirez froze as the sheriff and Holden entered behind her. The tape crackled, hissed, then a voice filled the room, a trembling whisper, taut with fear. Jonas Creed, if you're hearing this, I didn't make it out. He found me. He always finds me. The sheriff leaned in, heart pounding. Creed continued, breathing erratic. He's not Ward. He's not Knox. He wasn't even supposed to be on shift that night. But he was there. He was always there. Watching her. Watching them. Holden whispered, "Who?" The tape hissed, like a sigh from the past. "The one in charge. Keaton." Creed's voice shook harder. Ward did what he was told. Knox looked the other way. Reeves panicked. But him. He planned everything. He stalked her for weeks. He knew her route, her habits. He orchestrated every detail. I tried to warn her. I tried to get someone to listen. I tried to stop him. And then came the sentence that splintered the room in half. He didn't mean to take her at first. He only meant to scare her. But she recognized him. And then everything spiraled. The sheriff closed his eyes in horror. Creed inhaled sharply. He saw me taking photos. He told me I'd disappear too if I ever spoke. I thought leaving town would save me. But he followed. Every place I went he followed. Every job, every address. He wants to finish what he started. Movement outside the cabin made the sheriff's hand jump toward his holster. Holden snapped off the recorder. The room went silent except for their own breathing. And then, a thud, soft, against the door. The sheriff raised his weapon. Holden eased toward the window and peeked out. Nothing. The forest was empty. Too empty. The The sheriff motioned for Ramirez to position herself behind the kitchen counter. Holden counted silently, then swung open the door with a sharp pull. Wind rushed in, cold and sharp, and there on the porch lay a single envelope. White, edges crisp. Cedar scented. The sheriff picked it up with gloved fingers. Inside was a single sheet. One sentence. Leave the cabin now. Holden felt the fear tighten. It's a trap. But the sheriff shook his head. Creed is warning us. If he's still alive, he's watching. He scanned the tree line. Then he saw it. Something glinting. A reflection. A lens. Someone was in the woods, filming them. Creed? Or the fourth man? Then a sound split the silence. A branch snapping under weight. Heavy weight. Coming closer. The sheriff whispered. We need to move. Holden grabbed Ramirez. They ran out the back door, sprinting toward the vehicles. The forest closed around them like a tightening fist. Branches whipped their faces. Leaves crunched underfoot. Breath burned in their lungs. Behind them, footsteps, not running, just walking, steady, confident, as if whoever followed knew they couldn't escape, as if he'd done this before, as if this was the same forest he had walked 30 years ago. The sheriff didn't look back. He knew that cadence, that deliberate pace, that silent looming presence, the kind of walk that belonged to a man who believed he owned the ground beneath him. The fourth man, Keaton. They burst into a clearing where patrol vehicles waited. Engines roared, doors slammed. Officers grabbed radios, shouting for backup. The sheriff turned, heart pounding, expecting to see a figure step from the woods, but the tree line remained still, silent, empty, as if the forest had swallowed him whole. The sheriff gripped the edge of the vehicle, chest heaving. Holden steadied himself beside him. Ramirez locked the doors. Then a deputy ran up, holding something he'd found wedged into the crack of the cabin porch. Another piece of paper, cedar scented, this one with 3 words. He's behind you. Every officer spun, but the clearing was empty. The sheriff's skin crawled. This wasn't a chase. This wasn't a hunt. This was something orchestrated, controlled, watched. The fourth man was always one step ahead, always unseen. A ghost wearing a badge. A predator with a uniform. Someone who knew exactly how much to reveal. Someone feeding them fear. And just as the sheriff felt the weight of that realization settle in, Ramirez whispered from inside the car, "Sheriff, there's something on the windshield." They turned. A handprint, fresh, pressed into the glass from the inside. Not one of theirs. Thin, long-fingered, smudged with clay and oil. The signature Jonas Creed had left at the gas station 30 years ago. But this time, the print was followed by a streak, as if Creed had been pulled away mid-mark. The sheriff whispered, "He's still alive." The wind moved through the trees, slow and deliberate, like something exhaling. Holden looked at the forest. Then who was behind us? The sheriff felt it then. The chilling truth they'd all been circling around. The fourth man wasn't just inside the woods. He was inside the investigation, watching, listening, moving pieces like a puppeteer pulling strings. And as the final rays of daylight bled into darkness, the sheriff realized something else. The real cold case wasn't Lena. The real cold case was all the men standing around her that night. Ward, Knox, Reeves, Creed, and the one who commanded them all, the one who never once stepped into the light, the one whose shadow stretched across 3 decades, the one now hunting the investigators the same way he hunted her, Keaton, or someone far worse. The sheriff didn't sleep that night. He sat in his office long after the others had gone home, staring at the handprint smeared across the windshield. A mark that shouldn't exist, a message carved in oil and desperation. Jonas Creed was alive. Somewhere. Somehow. And if the streak across the glass meant what the sheriff feared it meant, Creed had been taken again. Dragged away. Silenced just before they arrived. Outside, the parking lot was empty except for the flicker of a single street lamp that buzzed like an insect trapped inside a glass jar. The stillness felt staged. Too perfect, as if the night itself was pausing to listen. Every instinct in the sheriff's body screamed that the fourth man was nearby, not watching from a distance, but close enough to feel the air shift when a radio clicked on, close enough to walk right through the station without leaving a trace. "He's behind you." The phrase echoed again and again, tapping against the back of the sheriff's mind like a finger drumming against glass. Creed had left the message. Creed had warned them, But Creed had also run. And now Creed had been taken, meaning the fourth man had eyes everywhere. The sheriff turned off the lights and locked the office door behind him. The station was too quiet. Phones muted, radios silent. He stepped outside, the night swallowing him whole. Wind rolled across the asphalt like a slow breath. For a moment he stood still, waiting, listening. But there was only the hum of distant traffic and the low thrum of insects hidden in the grass. Then his phone buzzed, an unknown number. No caller ID, just a blank screen flashing through the dark. He answered. Nothing, just breathing, slow, measured, controlled. A predator's breathing. Creed, the sheriff whispered. A pause. The breathing grew softer. Then a voice whispered, not frantic, not afraid, but calm. Too calm. Sheriff. The word felt like a hand sliding across his spine. The sheriff swallowed. Keaton. Silence. A soft exhale. Then, stop looking for him. Before the sheriff could respond, the line went dead. He lowered the phone, pulse hammering. Whoever had called didn't need threats. They didn't need to taunt. The voice carried authority, the kind that came from someone who had spent a lifetime controlling others, bending them, shaping them. Someone used to being obeyed. The sheriff immediately traced the call. Holden dialed the carrier, accessing dispatch logs, but the number was a dead end. Spoofed, routed through a dozen towers, disappearing into static. Whoever called knew how to erase footprints, knew how investigations worked, knew the sheriff's next move before he made it. We need to protect the witnesses, the sheriff said. Holden nodded. Dunley and Maribel. The sheriff felt the dread coil tighter. And anyone else connected to the original case. They split the team. 2 deputies sent to Harold Dunley's house, 2 to the gas station, others to comb through Keaton's last known contacts. Holden and the sheriff drove toward the outskirts of town. Sirens off, headlights dimmed. The moon hung low, smearing dull silver across the fields. Grass bent in waves, whispering secrets to the wind. The sheriff tightened his grip on the wheel. Every shadow looked like a figure waiting to step into the light. When they arrived at Dunley's home, it was already too quiet. Lights off, curtains drawn. The oxygen tank on the porch tipped over, rolling slowly back and forth as if someone had kicked it. The sheriff knocked. No answer. He pushed the door. It creaked open on its own. Inside, the house was a wreck. Furniture overturned, papers scattered, a lamp shattered near the window. The air smelled faintly of metal, like fear had a scent, sharp and cold. Harold, the sheriff called out. No reply. Holden swept the hallway. The sheriff checked the bedroom. The blankets were crumpled. The mattress shifted as if someone had been pulled from it. Then Holden's voice, tight, clipped. Sheriff, back room. The sheriff stepped into the living room. On the wall, smeared with clay and oil, was another handprint. Creed's. Below it, drawn shakily, a single arrow pointing downward. The sheriff followed it. On the floor beneath the arrow was a cassette tape. Old, worn, labeled with a single letter. C. Creed. Holden breathed. The sheriff pocketed the tape, but the dread grew heavier, the kind that sat on the chest and refused to move. Harold's gone. Holden said. Taken, same as Creed. The sheriff felt himself sink. Because he talked! And Maribel? They drove fast. Too fast. The gas station sign flickered weakly against the night. The sheriff's stomach twisted as they pulled up. The lights inside were off, the door slightly ajar. Holden drew his gun. The sheriff nodded. They pushed inside. The store was empty. Too empty. The shelves were untouched, the cash register undisturbed. But the air hummed with something. An echo. A vibration. A ghost. Then they saw it. On the glass door of the ice freezer. A message written with a shaky finger in condensation. He took her. Holden exhaled sharply. Maribel! The sheriff shook his head. No. Creed wrote that. He stepped closer. The frost was fresh, meaning the message was new, meaning Creed had been here less than an hour ago. And if Creed had been here, so had the fourth man. Another vehicle approached fast from the road. The sheriff spun, hand on his weapon, but it was Deputy Ramirez. Sheriff! She shouted, stumbling through the door. We found something. Holden steadied her. What? Ramirez swallowed hard. At the cabin, we missed a room. The sheriff's pulse spiked. Show me! They raced back into the night. The wind picked up, rustling through the treetops like something whispering just out of reach. The drive felt shorter this time, as if the darkness had swallowed the distance entirely. When they reached the cabin, the woods felt heavier, denser, as if the trees themselves leaned closer to hear what came next. Ramirez led them around the side, to a door nearly buried beneath vines and rotted wood. A cellar entrance. The lock was broken, she said. Not by us. Holden raised his flashlight. They descended the steps. The air was cold, damp. It tasted like earth and iron. The beam of the flashlight cut through the darkness, and then they saw it. A room, small, cramped, walls covered in old newspaper clippings, photos, scraps of maps. Articles about Lena, about the investigation, about Ward Knox, the sheriff's predecessor. Every headline connected with string. Red, blue, black. Dozens of colors. A system only the person who made it could understand. A nest of paranoia, or a monument to truth. The sheriff scanned the walls. One clipping stood out. A photo of the 1992 police department lined up after a charity event. Fresh officers, veterans, command staff. Keaton, Ward, Knox, Reeves, and standing in the far right corner, partially hidden behind another officer, a young man with glasses. Jonas Creed, the sheriff exhaled. Creed wasn't hiding. He was documenting. He was collecting. Holden leaned in closer. Looks like he tried to figure out who the fourth man was. The sheriff traced one of the strings. It led to a blank space on the wall, a single note pinned above it, written in rushed, shaking handwriting. He stands where the light never reaches. Below it, another note. He doesn't follow orders. He gives them. Holden looked at the sheriff. Keaton. But the sheriff didn't answer, because something about the phrase felt wrong. Off. It didn't match Keaton's profile. Keaton was strict, yes. Controlling. A manipulator. But he didn't hide in shadows. He commanded rooms. He didn't lurk. He didn't stalk. He enforced. The man who lurked was someone else. Ramirez shone her light on the far wall. Another note. This one newer. Darker. Fresh ink. He's not who you think he is. Then another piece of paper. Smaller. Pinned just below it. Look closer. The sheriff leaned in. And beneath the paper was a photograph. Not from 1990. From 3 weeks ago. Taken outside the sheriff's office. A man leaving the building. A man the sheriff had trusted. A man who had worked the case beside him. Holden, except someone else stood in the background. Barely visible. A shadow inside a patrol car. Watching Holden. Watching the sheriff. Watching everything. The sheriff felt the world tilt. The shadow was not Keaton. The shadow wore a badge. A current badge. The sheriff lifted the photograph, heart hammering, and saw something taped behind it. A name, written in the same rushed handwriting Creed used. A name that froze the sheriff's breath in his lungs. A name that rewrote everything. A name belonging to someone inside the department. Someone they'd trusted. Someone who had been helping the investigation. Someone who'd been with them since the beginning. Someone who knew every move they'd made. Someone standing in that very room at that very moment. The sheriff turned slowly. Holden stood behind him, eyes wide, face pale, hands shaking. Sheriff, Holden whispered. What's wrong? The sheriff stared at him, unable to speak, because the name on the note wasn't Holden. It wasn't Keaton. It wasn't Ward. It wasn't Knox. It wasn't Reeves. The name belonged to someone else entirely. Someone whose footsteps the sheriff suddenly heard, coming down the cellar stairs, slow, controlled, confident, a cadence he recognized. A cadence from the video. A cadence from the clearing. A cadence from the gas station. The sheriff whispered the name as the footsteps grew louder. Deputy Rowan, and the cellar door closed behind them. The cellar door closed with a soft, deliberate click, quiet enough to sound accidental, intentional enough to feel like a verdict. Holden froze. Ramirez swallowed hard. The sheriff didn't move. The temperature seemed to drop in an instant, air thickening like the walls themselves were exhaling cold breath. Footsteps descended the stairs. Slow, steady, unhurried. A cadence that matched the one in the clearing, the one that moved behind Creed's camera, the one that had echoed across decades like a metronome of fear. Deputy Rowan stepped into the beam of the flashlight. His face appeared calm. Too calm. Not tense, not panicked, not surprised. His expression was neutral, borderline bored, as if he'd known this moment was inevitable, as if he were simply arriving at an appointment. Ramirez lifted her weapon instinctively. Holden did the same, but Rowan didn't even blink. He stared at the sheriff with the confidence of someone who'd already won. "Put the guns down," Rowan said softly. His voice held no threat, but carried something worse. Certainty. The sheriff took half a step back, maintaining the beam of light on him. "Rowan?" he said, barely above a whisper. "What did you do?" Rowan tilted his head slightly, as though the question amused him. "Sheriff, you're looking for answers in all the wrong corners." Holden tightened his grip. "You were at the cabin. You were in the woods." A faint smile tugged at Rowan's lip. "You're assuming I only started following this case recently." The sheriff's skin crawled. Rowan continued down the last steps, stepping into the center of Creed's chaotic collage. Photos, clippings, strings tangled like a mind unraveling. As the flashlight illuminated Rowan's figure, another realization hit the sheriff like a physical blow. Creed hadn't drawn the fourth man's silhouette from memory. He'd drawn it from observation, from seeing Rowan again and again, watching him, following him, barely escaping him. The sheriff steadied himself. "Rowan, how long have you been involved in this?" Rowan didn't answer immediately. He moved one hand along the wall of evidence, fingertips skimming the clippings as if reading Braille. He paused over a photograph of Lena, smiling in her diner apron, unaware of the darkness orbiting her. "I joined the department 12 years ago," Rowan finally said. "But I've been part of this longer than you think." Holden stepped closer. "You weren't even alive in 1992. Rowan's smile widened. "I wasn't, but the men who taught me were." The sheriff felt his breath hitch. Ward, Knox, Reeves, and the man who'd started it all. "Keaton." Rowan turned toward the sheriff slowly. "You think this case is about one night, one disappearance, one victim?" He shook his head. "But it's about lineage. It's about passing down a legacy, a tradition of control. A chain." Ramirez's voice cracked. "A chain of what?" Rowan lifted his chin. "Power." The sheriff's pulse hammered. Rowan stepped forward, hands behind his back, posture relaxed. Keaton knew how to choose. Not people with strong moral compasses or loud ambitions, but people who could be shaped, molded, whispered into. People who could learn the art of silence. He looked directly at the sheriff. "People like Creed." The sheriff blinked. "Creed wasn't part of this. He was a witness. He tried to stop it." Rowan's expression sharpened. "No. Creed was a recruit. A trainee. He was brought in the same way I was, under the guise of a ride-along, under mentorship." Holden's eyes widened. "Keaton groomed Creed." Rowan nodded. "He taught him how to watch, how to document, how to understand weakness in others." His voice dropped. But Creed failed. He grew a conscience. He tried to warn the girl, and Keaton couldn't allow that. The sheriff swallowed. "So Keaton threatened him." "Threatened." Rowan laughed quietly. "Sheriff, he owned him. Once Creed saw what happened at the highway, he could never walk away. He was marked. He was collateral." Ramirez stepped forward. "What did you do? What part did you play?" Rowan shrugged. "I never touched Lena. I wasn't there. I wasn't born. But I inherited the role Keaton carved out." Holden's voice hardened. "What role is that?" Rowan's eyes burned with something unreadable. "The Watcher." The sheriff flinched. "The letters, the cameras, the tracking, the silent presence, all of it orchestrated with precision. But if Rowan was the Watcher, then Creed's warnings didn't make sense." Holden pointed the flashlight directly at Rowan's face. "The letters, those came from Creed. He was warning us about you." Rowan chuckled. "You assume Creed was the only one writing?" Silence fractured across the room. The sheriff's eyes widened. "You wrote some of them." Rowan didn't deny it. "It's important to steer an investigation," Rowan said. "Guide it. Make sure it doesn't lose momentum or gain too much of the wrong kind." The sheriff felt nausea rise. "You planted evidence. You manipulated every lead." Rowan shrugged, almost gently. Not every lead. Creed did some of the work for me. Fear can be a powerful motivator. Holden growled. What did you do to him? Rowan's calm expression dimmed. Not with guilt, but irritation. Creed ran. I followed, over and over. For years. He became obsessed with exposing Keaton. He couldn't let go. Couldn't stay hidden. He kept leaving clues, thinking someone would believe him. Rowan smirked. No one ever did. Until now. The sheriff stepped forward. Where is he, Rowan? Rowan's smile faded entirely. Gone. A cold weight settled on the sheriff's chest. Dead? Rowan paused. Gone, he repeated. Not a denial. Not confirmation. Just a void of an answer. Ramirez lifted her weapon again. Why take Harold? Why take Maribel? Rowan sighed, almost bored. Loose ends. People who saw too much in 1992. People who recognized faces they shouldn't have. Holden snapped. People you murdered! Rowan rubbed his temple, annoyed. Haven't you been listening? I don't kill. I watch. I contain. I manage. The sheriff stepped closer, fury simmering. Then who killed them? Rowan's eyes gleamed. Sheriff, you really think I'm the only one? Silence swallowed the room. Rowan spread his hands. This isn't a one-man operation. It wasn't then. It isn't now. The sheriff's throat tightened. Keaton's dead. Rowan's lip twitched. Is he? Holden exhaled sharply. You've seen him. Rowan didn't answer. That was answer enough. The sheriff's mind raced. Fight or flight instincts warred inside him. But something else caught his eye, something Rowan hadn't noticed he'd stepped beside. A glint of metal on the floor, a trapdoor latch. The sheriff kept his face neutral. Carefully neutral. Rowan drifted further inside the room, talking casually. Keaton had 3 recruits. Ward, Knox, Creed. All flawed, all unreliable. But the system didn't end with them. Someone had to carry the torch. Holden spat. You think this is a legacy? Rowan met his gaze coldly. It is survival. Then he moved, too fast, but not toward them. Toward the wall, he pressed a hidden switch beneath a cluster of clippings. A sound clicked through the cellar, a hidden mechanism. The sheriff lunged toward the trapdoor latch. Holden! Ramirez! Rowan reached into his jacket. The sheriff yanked the trapdoor open, shouting, Down! Holden shoved Ramirez through the opening. Rowan pulled something metallic from his coat, a flare gun. He fired. The cellar erupted into blinding red light. Flames burst across the paper-covered walls. The sheriff dove into the trapdoor as Rowan vanished into the smoke. He landed hard on cold dirt. Holden tumbled behind him. Ramirez hit the ground, coughing. Above them, fire roared. The sheriff slammed the door shut as flames engulfed the cellar. Darkness swallowed them whole. A long, low tunnel stretched before them. Claustrophobic. Hidden. Old, the sheriff whispered, breath trembling. Creed dug this. Holden nodded weakly. Then he survived longer than we thought. Ramirez pointed ahead, voice shaking. There's light! A faint glow flickered at the end of the tunnel. Not fire, a lantern, left burning like a signal. The sheriff moved forward, pulse pounding. They reached the end of the tunnel and found a small underground room. On a cot, a man, emaciated, breathing shallow, hands bound, covered in dirt and clay and oil. Alive, barely. Jonas Creed opened his eyes, whispered one word. A warning, a final clue, a name, a terror. The word crawled from his lips like something sharp and broken. Keaton. Then the lantern flickered, and someone above them, walking on the forest floor, began to laugh. Not Rowan. Someone heavier, older. A voice from 1992. A voice that should have been dead. The sheriff felt the truth crash over him like a tidal wave. The fourth man wasn't Rowan. Rowan was only the apprentice. The real threat, the real architect, was still out there, still alive, still hunting. Keaton. And he had come back to finish what he started. For a moment, no one in the underground room breathed. Not Holden, not Ramirez, not even the sheriff. The faint flicker of the lantern threw trembling, distorted shadows across the dirt walls, stretching them into monstrous shapes. Above them, on the forest floor, the footsteps continued. Slow, heavy, unhurried. A cadence carved from decades of command, the rhythm of a man who never needed to run because he always controlled the clock. Creed's eyes rolled weakly toward the ceiling, terror burning through exhaustion. He forced out another word, barely a breath. Run! Then he collapsed, chest shuddering in shallow, broken gasps. Holden knelt beside him, fingers moving to check his pulse. He's alive, but fading. We need medical. The sheriff put a hand on Holden's shoulder, voice low, tense, certain. Calling anyone right now gets us all killed. Ramirez backed toward the tunnel entrance, flashlight trembling in her grip. Sheriff, if that's Keaton up there— It is, the sheriff said. She stared at him. But he died. The sheriff shook his head. No, he disappeared. The footsteps above shifted direction, moving across the forest floor with a deliberate slowness, like someone searching for something he already knew how to find. A twig snapped. Leaves rustled. Dirt sifted down from the ceiling in thin trails. Keaton was close. He wasn't hunting blindly. He knew exactly where they were. The sheriff moved fast. We need to barricade the tunnel. Now! Holden and Ramirez rushed to pile crates, broken planks, old metal sheets, anything they could find, against the trap door that had dropped them into the tunnel. The sheriff killed the lantern, plunging the room into a suffocating blackness. The darkness wrapped around them like a living thing. Holden whispered, Sheriff, what do we do? The sheriff steadied his breath. We wait. We listen. We think. Above them, Keaton's voice drifted through the earth. Deep, rough, steady. A voice eroded by time, but not weakened. A voice that belonged to a man who had spent 30 years perfecting silence, only to break it now, deliberately, to terrify. You're trespassing! The sheriff's blood chilled. Holden's grip tightened on his flashlight. Keaton continued, voice calm, echoing through the soil. This place isn't meant for you. Silence. Then, a slow drag of something heavy across the forest floor. Metal against dirt. A tool. A weapon. A shovel? No, a crowbar. Ramirez whispered, He's trying to open the trap door. The sheriff didn't respond. Keaton's voice came again, this time closer, right above them. You shouldn't have dug this deep. Curiosity kills, especially in law enforcement. Another metallic scrape, closer now. Then, a single knock. Directly above the